Her name is Raley May, and what's the last name?
I know this one's Zebrauskas. I'll let you try that.
Hey, I almost had it right, Zebrauskas. So we're glad to have. I had her maiden name too, but I can't pronounce it either. So.
I upgraded.
Yeah, upgraded. There we go. Okay. Well, now your dad may have other thoughts about that. That's Dad's.
That's right.
But we're glad to have you right tonight. We just want to give you the opportunity to go up there and speak and just whatever. Yeah, I'll let our resident engineer turn that on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so is this thing on? Can you hear me? Oh. Don't mute me. I know, right? Okay. I mean, I can use that if you want. It's fine. Either way. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yep, I can hear me. So that's the first step, right? All right. Here we go. Well, yes, my name is Raley May, and I was given a very unique opportunity at a very young age, I guess you could say. About a month ago, Robin Livingston asked me if I would be willing to come here today and to tell you my testimony, to give my testimony. And I said, well, shoot, I hope I'm worthy, but yes, I would love to. I would happily do that because I have three purposes for telling this testimony. It's to give thanks to the Lord for all that He does in our lives and just the amazing blessings and gifts that our life is, and it's not without Him. It cannot happen without Him. So that's my ultimate goal, is to give praise to Jesus. My second goal by this sermon is to inspire those in need of help and encouragement, because that's what this story is. It's meant to be hope and encouragement for others. And I want to bring light to the miracles that God performs. So that's why I'm here today. Let's start from the very beginning. I have been horse crazy since I was a very little girl. I started riding at 3 years old. I was blessed into a family that the Western way of life was all that I knew, and it's everything that I love. So I started riding cutting horses at age 7, and I would barrel race a little bit on the side, and that was my bread and butter. I loved it. I was good at it. It's still today who I am. I had success at a young age too. When I was 14 years old, I had the opportunity to haul my horse for a world championship, and I was fortunate enough to actually be able to win a NCHA, National Cutting Horse Association World Championship at age 14. That was pretty cool for me. But that's just a title, and people forget about it, and it doesn't matter at the end. But when I went into high school, I continued to excel. I had my freshman year of high school, I won the National High School Finals Rodeo in the girls cutting, and then I decided that I just was going to jump in full bore into the NHSRA because it's what I love. So I became the student vice president of the NHSRA when I was a junior. I was a junior. That year at the high school finals was impeccable. If you want to win the lottery, I have won the lottery in so many different ways. I won the all-around title at the high school rodeo finals my senior year of high school, and I also won the girls cutting again. It was amazing. I was on cloud 9, and all I did when I was at age 18 was give my praise and my success to Jesus. That's what I had done from the beginning, and that was my life. So, I graduated high school. I gave away my reign. I had a full ride scholarship to go to New Mexico State University and compete on their rodeo team. And couldn't wait to do it. I was ready, I felt like I had conquered everything that I could conquer in high school, and I was ready for the next chapter. I was so excited for it. So that year, the high school finals was in Farmington, New Mexico, so I went down to Farmington, and, let me back up. So, I was getting ready to go to Farmington. It was July 3rd, and that is when my life began to change. July 3rd, I'll never forget it, I was standing in my bathroom, and I was doing my makeup, getting ready for the day, and my mom was in there, and we were just talking, having a conversation, and I got this kind of weird feeling, and it happened before, and I always just kind of, grab onto the counter, and the next thing I know, I wake up, or, I kind of come out of whatever's going on, and my mom's on the phone with 911, and I come out of whatever was going on, and she's freaking out, and I come out and say, hey, Mom, it's okay, this happens all the time. And she says, what? Because I had just had a seizure in front of her, and I had no idea. She said, this happens all the time. Okay, this is a problem. So at that time, I needed to have they thought I had epilepsy, but they also wanted me to have an MRI just to see. And when they did, then I went to the high school finals, gave up my reign, moved to college. I went to New Mexico State University. I'd moved there, I'd been there for 3 days. 3 days. August 1st, 2009 is a date that I will never forget, because that was the day that I had my MRI, and I found out that I had a golf ball-sized brain tumor in the very middle of my brain. It's pretty obvious to see where it's at on the screen, right? So that was something that just stops you in your tracks. So what do? Well, you got to turn to Jesus for some sort of direction, but I'm very thankful because through the horse industry and through the cutting horse industry, I had met a doctor that was actually a brain aneurysm specialist. He used to live in Washington State, which is where I'm originally from, so I had known him from my younger years. And when we got to this point, we called him up because we needed some advice and we needed some help on what to do. And he actually had transferred, and he was now an aneurysm specialist at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix. What a blessing. What a blessing to have him in our lives. So we called him, and he was at a doctor's retreat in Hawaii, of all places, at the time. And he answered the phone, and said, okay, well, let me do some calling around. Let me see what I can do. And so 3 hours later, he gives us a call back, and he says, I don't know what you're doing, but in 3 days, you need to be in Phoenix at the Mayo Clinic. I have an appointment with the head of the neurology department. His name's Dr. Zimmerman. Be there, basically. And we said, yes, sir. And so I had my original appointment, and they went through everything, and basically, from this looks pretty drastic. It is pretty drastic, but apparently for a brain tumor, it wasn't going to be that bad. So I was like, okay, well, they told us to expect a 5-hour surgery, and that I should be okay. They thought that this tumor was a benign tumor, and you see you can kind of see how there's like air pockets around the tumor almost. Well, those were they were cysts, and they thought that was going to create room for my doctor to work and be a good thing. Well, so we had my first surgery August 10th, 2009, and we got it once they got into my head. They found out that this was actually far more complicated than they thought. Instead of it being a benign tumor, they found out at that point that it was actually a malignant tumor, and that those cysts, they collapsed, and it made it very difficult to tell what was tumor and what was brain, and it just made some serious complications. Well, so, my parents are sitting in the waiting room. All right, 5 hours rolls around. Okay, nobody's come to get us yet. 7 hours rolls around. I can't imagine what they were going through. Me, I was under. It was okay for me. But 8.5 hours go by. They're the only people left in the waiting room at this point. Nobody's come out, told them anything, given them an update. So at that point, my doctor was so physically exhausted that he just had to stop. He had to stop. He thought that he'd gotten about 80% of my tumor at this point, and he just physically had to stop, and they would kill the rest with chemo or radiation or, another form. And so 8.5-hour surgery, everything ended. The next day, I had to have another MRI to try to see what was going on. At this point, I was okay. I mean, I was alive. If you could see, I had a cool turban at this point. But I could eat. I had some effects at this point. Like, I was walking with a walker at this point, but but I could walk, and I was fine. I knew who my parents were. I could talk. It was, in my opinion, that's gravy compared to what happened next. They took the MRI, and they found out that my doctor hadn't actually gotten 80% of my tumor. He'd only been able to get 60% of my tumor. So that was going to be too much in order to kill with chemo or radiation and whatnot. So the only choice was to go ahead and have another surgery. So, at this point, we can have the next surgery, we can get rid of the tumor, but it's still a malignant tumor, and it's still cancer of the brain. So it is what it is, I guess you can say. Well, okay, so we had my second surgery, August 14th, 2009, and they were about 3 hours into that surgery, and my brain started hemorrhaging, which is bleeding to the brain. So my doctor comes out, and again, I can't imagine what my parents are going through, because I'm under. At this point, this is kind of where it gets a little crazy. So they came out and told my parents, we need to take a CAT scan. We need to figure out where she's bleeding. We're going to abandon the tumor, but we need to stop the bleeding, and then we can go from there. Well, at this point, and I don't know why, this is the only thing that I remember in all of, really this whole story that I'm telling you is a story that somebody else has told me, because I don't remember any of it, but I do remember this. At this point, they brought a preacher that was at the hospital with my parents, and they brought my parents. Somehow, I remember that preacher and my parents praying over me. I don't know why I remember that, but it was a pivotal time, and that's the only thing that I remember. So I know that Jesus had to have had his hand on me at that point. So after that, they take my CAT scan, they finish the surgery. So once he actually did stop the bleeding, he did finish the surgery, which ended up being another 8.5-hour surgery. So at that point, there was a lot of trauma that had happened. So they put me into an induced coma, and I was in that coma for a day and a half about when I came out of that coma. I was paralyzed from my neck down which means that it had cancerous characteristics, but not enough to classify it as cancerous. And it truly, I mean, just to put it into perspective, 1% of tumors, not just brain tumors, but all tumors, are atypical. So I believe in miracles, because not only did I live through this surgery, I had a mysterious tumor that just miraculously turned out not being cancerous. That is a miracle. If you've ever seen a miracle, that is one. That same day, so that's number 2. That same day, they do the nurse change. 7 a.m., 7 p.m. So 7 p.m., usually my parents leave. That day, for some reason, I asked them to come back after dinner to be with me. And so the nurse asks me to put my hands up, she puts her hands up, and I'm supposed to squeeze her fingers, right? I'm paralyzed. I can never do that. So that day, I am kind of witty with all of this. So I was just talking with the nurse, and in a pretty high spirit, and I was talking with her, and she would ask me, who's the president of the United States? Well, I could get that one. I don't know how, but I could get that one. I couldn't tell you what day of the week it was, but I could tell you that. So anyway, she's asking me my questions, and she asked me to squeeze her fingers, and she stops me as I'm talking to her, and she says, "Raley, you just squeezed my hand." And I said, "What? What do you mean?" And usually when you get movement back like this, you will get, a little flick of a finger, something small. I looked at my hand, and it took every bit of effort and power that I had, but I could open it, and I could close it. I couldn't feel it, but I could do it. And that was the nurse right there. This is the nurse at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix. They see miracles every day. But the nurse just starts crying right there in front of me. And she starts calling other nurses into my room to you have to look at this girl. Look at what just happened. Look at what Jesus just did. So my parents, they come back after the nurse change, and I pick my hand up, and I try to wave at them when they walk in. Oh man, you want to talk about high emotions? Oh man. So at that point, that was another miracle, third miracle. This story is full of miracles that Jesus and our dear Lord performs. So at that point, because I did get my movement back, I couldn't feel it, but I could move it, and that's the beginning steps. So the next day, they moved me from the ICU of the hospital to, they moved me to this waiting room because they were trying to get a bed in rehab ready for me. And so I went on to this waiting room for just one day, and then I went into my room in rehab. Well, somehow, with all of this movement and me being very, very weak, because I had just kind of gone through some traumatic things, I somehow got meningitis. And I have never been so physically sick in my life. Like, all in all, being paralyzed, yes, that's to count it. And it took me 45 minutes to count out 87 cents in change. Because I didn't know how much a nickel was worth. I didn't really even know what it was, some little silver thingy. And I had to put that all back together. And it was just, it's amazing the things that you can take for granted in your life, the things that are easy and are seamless, they were hard. It was hard for me now. But as the days went by, everything started to come back, and it started to get better, and I was able to, it was kind of, the way that they explained it to me is that I had a roadblock. This tumor was a roadblock, and so because of all the scar tissue that was there, it wasn't that I didn't know the information, it was that I had to kind of reconnect the dots. So once I put two and two together, I knew it, that I had it, and then I could move on. But it's really frustrating when I had just graduated. I just graduated high school. I graduated in the top 10% of my class. And now I'm looking at a picture of a pair of scissors, and I can tell you that you cut with them, you cut paper with them, they work like this, but I, for the life of you, can't tell you what that's called. It's a bit humbling, but keeps you honest, right? Anyway, so as the days went on, I did relearn, and I did gain, and it did get better. Oh my gosh, there's so much in the story that happens. Anyway, so as I relearned, I was able to leave the hospital. And how long do you think it took from the beginning to the end of me having my first surgery to me being able to, yes, regain everything and be to the point to where, I wasn't normal, necessarily, what's normal, but I could take care of myself, or I would physically dress myself, I could feed myself, button my own shoes, or tie my own shoes, button my own shirt, that's it, that's an accomplishment. So, how long do you think to where I was fairly normal, to where I could leave the hospital with the care of my parents and whatnot, how long do you think that would take from the story that I told you?
About a year.
Probably about a year. This whole story, until this point, from the time I entered the hospital till the day I left, was 30 days. Wow. 30 days. And that's not by me. That's not because I'm strong. That's because our Jesus and our God is strong. And because he can perform miracles. That is another miracle. This story is full of them. And I'm fortunate because that's my life. It's full of miracles. From there, New Mexico State University was amazing to me. That's the college I went to. They worked with me. I missed the first full month of school, but thankfully I was on an athletic scholarship, so they were able to work with me. They put all of my credits that semester in a class with my advisor. So I had 12 credited hours with my advisor only, and quite frankly, I didn't really go to class all the time. Come on. I just had to relearn how to count. So they really worked with me and were able to almost gift me a semester's worth of credits. And so I was on track in college, but it was still very difficult for me. I had amazing to me. Then, you know, I was able to do my speech therapy at the hospital, at the school as well. I did 3 months of outpatient speech therapy, 9 months of physical therapy, and then I also was taking classes. I mean, the first semester I kind of was like trying to just put it all back together. And I really started college January of 2010 with a full load. I took 15 credited hours because I set a goal for myself that I was going to graduate college in 4 years. I graduated high school in 2009. 4 years is 2013, and I was going to do it. And sometimes I wonder, why did I want to do that? College is not that bad. Anyway, so I took a full load that second semester. I took 2 mini semesters of math, which is very difficult after you have to relearn how to count, because I had to catch up. So I took 2 semesters. I passed every class, which was pretty good. The next semester, I took another 15 credits. That second semester back, it was the first semester of 2010, and I got a 4.0. I don't know how. I'm all about hard work, I guess. And like I said, my story's given to me by something bigger than me. And so from there, college was still hard, like emotionally hard. For me, it was, yes, I had to try hard, but everybody has to try hard in school. It's hard. Not everybody can do it. So for me, I also was battling quite a bit of emotional problems. I had moved a long ways away from home. I was 2,500 miles away from home, and I guess I couldn't wait to be on my own, because I went quite far. And eventually, you know, my parents did leave, and I lived by myself, and so it was hard. It was hard. And I got to a point where I wanted to quit. I didn't want to do it anymore. But I set this goal, 4 years, and that was my goal. So my junior year, I was trying to figure out, how can I do this? Because I just can't do school, classroom, this, rodeo team, just everything. I couldn't do it right now anymore. I wanted something else. I wanted to walk away. I wanted a break, something. So I had 2 options. I could either to stay in school and graduate in 4 years, because that's what I'm going to do. I could either do an internship, or I could do a foreign exchange. At that point, I was a junior in college, so it was too late to do a foreign exchange. So I was like, all right, internship it is. At that point, somehow, I was blessed by a company to be able to do an internship in Chicago. And so, little old me, I pack up my bags, pack up my life into 3 suitcases. I moved to downtown Chicago, where I'd never been to a city like over maybe 150,000 people. There was probably 150,000 people in the building that I lived in. It was an experience, and a really interesting one at that. So as I worked for an oil trading company, which just blessed me. They let me I was an intern in their office, and I mean, it was a learning experience for sure. But in that time, God has plans, people, and He makes those plans, because I met somebody that entered my life that changed it. I met my husband while I was working on this internship. I'm sure that my parents loved that, thought that was really a good goal when you go on in some internship during college. Well, I came back with somebody that I deeply love. And so my internship ended in May of 2012, and I still had another year of college. Greg, my husband, he lived in Chicago at the time, so we did a long-distance relationship for for a year. And we decided, at that point, I had graduated college, or I was graduating, and I told, he knew what my life was. I figured out that, cool, the city was really interesting, but that's not where I'm going to be able to take my life for the rest of it. I just can't. And so he asked me, where do you want to live? And I said, well, someplace where you can have your life and I can have mine. The only place I want to live is Texas. That's right. That's right. So we decided, he said, okay, I guess I'll start. I told him Dallas. If you're going to move jobs, look in Dallas. And he said, okay. And he tried to find he did. He got a job. My husband is amazing. He got a job over the phone. You tell me that God doesn't have a hand in it? You're wrong. He has to. So my husband got a job over the phone. I still was in New Mexico going to school, and I was about to graduate, so I graduated in May. He'd moved. We both moved that same day. I moved to Lewisville, Texas. And then we got married. About 3 months later, we got married in August of 2013. Man, get that date right. Anyway, so, from the time that I entered college to the time I left, it was 4 years. I graduated May 2013, and I changed my life. And looking back on it now, not that it's been very long, but looking back on it, I just am amazed. I'm amazed by the miracles that God performs, and that when you trust in him, when you truly trust in him, he will prevail and he will deliver. You ask, you shall receive. And I've asked, and we receive. All of us. Everybody in my life, the people that are here in this room, we received. And I felt like, it was hard. Please don't think I haven't struggled. I still struggle to this day. You can ask my parents, you can ask my husband. It is a struggle still. But all I know at the end of the day is that God is good and that he brings us this for his life. And he used me, he saved me to be able to share this with you, with other people. Because that's the truth. That is God. That's why I'm here today. That's why I wanted to tell you this story. I had a really cool opportunity. I work in Plano now, and I work for a company where I end up traveling around, and lo and behold, I had a work function in Phoenix. I love Phoenix. I'm biased. I'm real biased, but that's where the Mayo Clinic's at. So I happened to just have an extra day or so to go back and visit the people that changed my life, that saved my life. And so I went back. It was just a month ago, and I met up with my doctor, Dr. Zimmerman. He's this man right here. That man is so. I cry almost every time I talk about him, but he's amazing. He, I was fortunate enough to where I was able to have a conversation with him, to where I got to ask, like, can you, I know the story, I've heard the story, but can you just explain it to me again? Like, what is the medical reasoning behind this? And, can you explain it? He said, no, I can't. I really can't explain it, because what happened to you is not something that I can really medically explain. It is a miracle. It is a miracle. That's what happened to you. And it was picture of her, Bernadette and me. We were tap dancing, and she taught me how to walk again. She was there my whole time. She helped me through the hard times. She helped me relearn all of this. She was my occupational therapist, and man, what a hard job, but I can't thank you enough to her for how she impacted my life. She actually, we connected on such a high level because she had had a brain tumor when she was 16, and she lived through it and became an occupational therapist, and she just happened to be my occupational therapist. I did my therapy, with mostly stroke victims and people that were significantly older than me. I was 18, so it was fun to be able to relate to somebody that had kind of gone through what I was going through. It was just amazing. This doctor right here, her name's Dr. Kinney, and she was over the whole rehab portion of that division of the hospital. And when I left, I had given the people that touched me at that hospital, I had given them a picture of me. And so when I walked back into this hospital about a month ago, and I said hi to them, and it was just awesome. She had that picture that we're holding. She had the picture that I gave her 7 years before on her desk still. And it was just, it was amazing. They built an entire new portion of the hospital. And that's where Dr. Zimmerman had moved to. And he, in his room, I didn't put the picture on here, but in his office, he had like an entire wall of degrees. This man is amazing. And wall of degrees. And one picture of somebody on there, some random girl riding a horse on his wall. And it was me. And just to know that you impact others just as deeply and as amazing and greatly as they impact you is just surreal. So, I want you guys to know that this story was given to me in order to give it to other people and to bring light and hope to the miracles that God can and does perform. Ask and you shall receive. God is the reason why, even in pain, I smile. In confusion, I try to understand. That's a hard task right there. But in fear, I continue to fight. I could not do those things if it weren't for God. It's a beautiful thing when you can just lift it up. Just lift all of that up. He'll take care of it. He does. He promised us that. If you accept Jesus Christ into your heart, He will take it away from you. Give it to Him. And He does. He does. So, in closing, I hope that I gave you 3 points that I was trying to do here today. I wanted to inspire those in need of inspiration. I wanted to bring light to the miracles that God performs, and I wanted to give thank you to the Lord. So I hope that I've done that here today, and I hope that I've, maybe impacted your life or your day. Maybe made you think, hey, it's not all that bad. It's not all that bad. Somebody might have it worse. But at the end, if we can just give it to Him and give it back to Him, He will take care of you, and He will take care of all of us. So thank you very much for being here with me today, and I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I have. Dang it, I wish I would have. It's completely gone. You know, you saw that picture. She's not running the computer anymore, so we can't roll back. But
Oh, yeah.
She is.
it is. Oh, I have it on my phone. I wish I would have put that in there. Dang it. I did this kind of. Anyway, dang it. But it is. Oh, meningitis. Oh my gosh, I should have been looking behind me. Anyway. So the meningitis, it settles in my tailbone. When you're paralyzed and you have meningitis and it settles in your tailbone, it's just not very nice. Anyway, I needed a little ice. But go back to the tumor, Mom.
I'm trying.
Basically, so this whole, on the side here, this is all gone. I mean, it's like normal. It looks just like this right here on this side. And this is still like the hole, I guess you would say, is still there. But this white, that's the tumor, obviously, is gone. It's just black. It's clear space. No, it's not filled in, but it is completely gone. I've had a clean bill of health for 7 years now, and I haven't had any sign of it coming back. You know, and when I went back and I talked to my Dr. Zimmerman, I asked him. I said, you know, Dr. Z, you told me that there is a likelihood that this could come back, and there is. And he just said, yeah, it's still there. That likelihood, that chance, I can't tell you it's not. But he said there's no sign of it at all. Not at all. So, you know, that's just.
Did you start riding horses
amazing.
again pretty quickly?
I did. You know, horses are kind of like a drug, and I'm addicted to something fierce. And I actually, I'm sure Dr. Zimmerman would kind of roll his eyes on this one, but I rode 30 days after I left the hospital. And I competed in my first rodeo about, I think it was like 2 months, maybe, after I left the hospital, and I competed in breakaway roping, barrel racing, goat tying. Yeah, flying off a horse, tying goats. I love goat tying. I was a really good goat tyer in high school, and yeah, so it was just, I don't know. I probably shouldn't have done that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But it was what I needed. It was the therapy that I needed for myself, you know? And so that's where, yeah, that was that. Did you have a question, sir? You acted like you didn't know? Okay. Does anybody else have a question? I'm happy to answer anything that I can.
Are you riding today?
Yeah. Well, duh. Yeah, I have 2 horses. I ride as much as I can, as much as the daylight allows me to ride. It's like, it's my life. It's why we live here. My husband, he probably rolls his eyes and is like, yeah, we wouldn't maybe live in Texas if you weren't still riding horses. But it's, you know, it's a good thing. I wouldn't change it for the whole world, and quite frankly, I cannot live without it. I've come to realize that I just can't. It's who I am. Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm asked Greg, will you come up here and stand for me tonight? And Mom and Dad, will you come up here and stand? And we just want to thank all of you for being here today and allowing the Lord to touch our hearts with your testimony. And I want to share something with all of you. You know, God doesn't make any mistakes. And for some reason this week, I woke up in the middle of the night, which is not uncommon at my age for us to wake up in the middle of the night. And you may not know it. One of these days I'm going to bring a message for us old folks. The Bible talks about this age business. Anyway, I was just, a scripture just came to mind, and so I looked it up, and I think it fits here. It's Acts 17:28. Listen to this. And there may be something going on in your life. 28, he says, "For in him we live and move and have our being." In Christ, we live and move and have our being. Just think where we would be if Christ did not exist.
Not here. I wouldn't be.
We're going to have prayer, and I'm going to ask that if there's anyone that has a need and wants to be prayed for, if you would, just come forward, and maybe would it be possible for a band maybe to play something? I know this is totally unrehearsed, and they're getting the news when you do. But if they would just come